Welcome to Rick on Life, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Media Project. I'm your host, Rick Amitin, and we love to talk about things that impact our lives here on the show. Today, we're going to be talking about how to promote your cause with Jennifer Duggins. Jennifer has an innovative global vision, a lust for travel, and a sappy side that may or may not make her tear up during commercials. She has over 15 years professional experience in grant writing, donor research, fundraising, program development, nonprofit management, large-scale events, marketing, public relations, social media, and website and curriculum development, and also in instructional coaching, broadcast journalism, as well as radio, film, television, and corporate productions. Jennifer's goal is to reach clients whose vision drives them and who seek full service communications dedicated to the diverse world in which we live. And as if that isn't enough, she is an avid Instagrammer and may one day complete one of the 2 novels she has started when she catches her breath. She also has experience in radio, film, television, and corporate productions. Sorry about that, I skipped the line. And besides all that, we are friends and we are also business associates as we do quite a bit of work together. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing great. Having a little tongue twister this morning, but we're all right. Hey, it's great to have you. I've been looking forward to it. Let's start by you telling us just a little bit of your personal story.
Okay, just a little bit. So I grew up on an organic farm in Southwest Missouri. My dad was instrumental in having produce certified organic. He was a lobbyist for the government. And because of that, I was very limited on television viewing and was stuck in the middle of nowhere. So spent a lot of time writing and dreaming of what I would be one day. And at that time, it was either going to be an actress or a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. So I have experience in one of the 2 of those, and I've never been a cheerleader. I went to college at Southwest Missouri State University, now known as Missouri State, and then I got my master's degree at the University of Texas in Arlington in literature. And throughout all that time, I was working corporate gigs and raising my kids. I'm a single parent, and that plays a huge part into dreams and goals for the future and, philanthropy. So that's it.
Hey, you actually shot some commercials. Tell us about the one. I know there's one that's pretty popular. Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, which one? So I did a couple. I did a Prilosec OTC commercial. It's, heartburn, that sort of thing. Just a bunch of women playing bunco. So there was that. And then I did, I think the more received or well-known commercial was a men's hair growth product. And, in those hair product commercial, there's always a woman doing something amazing and sporty and then running her hands through the man's hair and saying, gee, your hair looks terrific. And I was that woman.
Yeah, that's so neat. And you do some acting, and you've had some wonderful roles. And so it's such an exciting, well-rounded and versatile life. But you're also now a businesswoman. And so let's talk about the work that you do. Your company is called BoHo Gypsy Girl Communications. So tell us a little bit about your actual work history and the work you do with your company.
So I started out in corporate finance, if you can believe that. Even despite the writing, my first corporate job was in finance, and I helped run a women's event that taught women how to invest. Um, from there, I moved into some other roles in corporate marketing and advertising. I was in television news for many years. Um, Actually, that kind of went in with the acting, because I thought I would be a reporter and kind of combine those two skills. And after being in the industry for many years, I realized that wasn't something that life goal that I wanted to have anymore. So that went into marketing and advertising. And in the process of doing that, I decided to get my master's degree. And it just, by fluke, I was invited by a professor to teach while I was getting my master's degree. And because my kids were in school, it was perfect with their schedules. So I took that position and ended up teaching for 13 years. So I went from corporate to education. First, higher education, I was in university level for 3 years and taught freshman and sophomore level students. And then I went from education that's after education is when I started my business. So.
Well, we know that every business is concerned with branding. They're concerned with their establishing their identity, what they do. And they need to be able to define who they are. I love this presentation that Simon Sinek puts on about the golden triangle. When he talks about the three components, one of them being everybody pretty much knows what they do. So if you make this or you make that, or you sell this or you sell that, everybody knows what they do. Some of them can even describe to you or explain to you how they do what they do. But very few of them know why they do what they do. And he believes that that why is what separates one company from the next, even though the work that they're doing may be very, very similar, and the quality of their work may be very similar. But when you work from the inside out with that why, it separates you. So every company needs to be concerned about their branding, their identity, how people see them, why they're doing what they're doing. So talk to us about how a company develops that presence in the marketplace.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think those are very valid points. It's part of why I do what I do. When I started this business, I left education and I realized I had this plethora of skills that acting and television news and, so on and so forth, corporate finance. And I wanted the ability to put that under a business umbrella that would reach out to people. And I think for me, the answer to your question is, as a business, we have a vision, and we may not even be clear on what that vision is. And I think that as a company, my goal is to help people discover their vision, or if they already have one, to really define, nail down what that is, so that they can explore that why in the marketplace. They can let people know why they're here. A lot of that's about story for me. A lot of businesses have a story when they start, but their customers don't understand their story, or their story isn't clear about why they're doing what they're doing. And that's aside from money. That comes down to what's important to you in your life. Why, how do you think you can help people? And I feel like a lot of people will have that vision of themselves, but they don't have a voice to speak that vision. And I want to be able to give people the voice that goes along with it. And now when I say voice, I don't mean audible voice. I mean a story voice. Who you are, why you're there, what impact you want to make on the world and on your clients, people you work for. So I think that therein lies my focus with my company, is to help other people find that story. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, the voice, you know, we all have a voice, and it's whether or not it's going to be distinctive enough. You know, can it resonate, you know, with what our cause really is. And so I didn't really name our program today so much about promoting your business, because really it's not that. It's promoting your cause. And
Yes.
money is a result. It's not the why. Money is the result of the why. And so getting down to why we're doing what we're doing and why we do it the way we do it is the story. And that's what sells, and that's what people connect with. And we can call it voice, we can call it story, we can call it, you know, a number of things. But I think that's what it is that causes people to gravitate toward what we're doing. So let's expand on that just a little bit. When we talk about a company having a voice, and they need to discover their story inside themselves to present that to everybody else, how do you help them discover it?
There are a couple of ways. I'm not rolling my eyes, I'm looking up. There are a couple of ways that I do that. And I think the first point to what you're saying is, and to answer that question is, I think what we're finding in social media and marketing is that the businesses that are doing well are getting their story out there. It's the public is craving that. They don't want a product sold to them. They want to know who you are as a company, so they buy into you first. And in order to do that, in order to market that, I have to buy into you. And so that's my goal first and foremost is to get to know my customer, spend time with them, tour their company, or, you know, read their collateral, really get to know them, and then ask questions. There are a lot of questions that go along with a story, and really getting to really what it comes down to is the heart of who people are. And I'm not just talking small business. Every big business has a central heart that they are, someone in that company knows and envisions. And that's what I'm going for. I try to build that rapport with my client. And I know you do too. I try to build that personal rapport so that I get
Right.
your story from you, so that I hear your voice. I can't market you and sell your story if I don't first believe in you. And that's my goal. And I think all as humans, there's a way to connect with anyone. And that's what I try to find.
So when it comes to marketing and communication, what do you see as the things that are lacking the most?
You know, there isn't cohesion in marketing, in business marketing and communications. In most companies, you'll have one group doing marketing and you'll have another group doing video production. So you'll hire an outside video production group, or you'll hire someone to write your grants, or you'll hire someone to plan your events. All of those entities can't possibly know your story, you know, as a friend would know your story. It's almost befriending a company is what I like to think of it as. And I feel like that's lacking in current marketing communication because it's so disjointed. I really feel like it needs to be brought together into cohesive units. So when you're at a corporate event, your voice is as clear as what's on your website and your social media. That your voice is as clear as what's in your grant writing. It's as clear as what's in any material you're sending out for communications. I think it's a very cohesive thing, and I think a lot of communications companies miss that. They don't do some piece and they're outsourcing that.
Yeah, it may seem a little bit redundant here, but just so we can expand on it, what is it then that you do differently than most marketing and communications companies are doing with their clients?
It's a cohesive, you know, piggybacking off of what I just said, it's really cohesive as far as I have skills. So I call myself the Jen of all trades. I know a lot of everything, and I think I do well at a lot of different pieces. So what I've done is I've combined those. So I can write your grants, your scripts. I also have performance experience. So I can perform or get quality performance talent to perform video scripts or in-source video. I can develop that video for you, so your voice, your story is cohesive throughout. If we're writing grants, and you can write grants for professional organizations. It just depends on what your philanthropic causes are, and you know, how you're making a difference in the world. Those lead to, you know, funding, non-loan funding. And so I want to find your voice, cohesive voice through all of that. So our company, that's our goal, to develop your corporate events, do your video marketing, to write your grants, to write your scripts for your videos, so that your voice and your story is a cohesive form of branding throughout.
Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit, since you brought up the, you know, the difference there between for-profit companies and non-profit companies, and grants. Let's expand on that a little bit, because I think that there are a lot of people who might have some idea that funding might be available to help their cause, but don't have a clue, you know, how you can really access that, where do you find that, or how is all of that done. So let's expand a little bit on maybe the difference between for-profit and nonprofit grant funding.
Okay. They're very different beasts, honestly. I hate to call them beasts, but really. On one side, you have nonprofit sector, and nonprofit survives off of donor funding, grant, whether that be through grants or through private donors. Every bit of funding that they receive goes back into their company. So the goal for a nonprofit is to produce enough funds to develop their services that they're offering to the public sector for no cost, is really what it comes down to. So on nonprofit grant funding, there are a lot of organizations out there and available for nonprofits, small to large. It does not matter. There is grant funding available. And finding those grants is a bit easier than finding for-profit funding. So although it's not easy, the catch is you've got to have time. These are, you know, online resources. There are online resources, online foundations that are set up. I won't say foundations, I'll say directories. That's a better word. Online directories where people can research those funders. That takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to research that, but and it also costs money. So you have to be able to access those resources. Then once you find those resources, you have to develop really kind of a calendar to develop how much time it's going to take you to do these, when their deadlines are, et cetera. It's a very elaborate process. And then writing the grant. And that a lot of people think they can write. The grant writing is very specific. You may be a fantastic writer and your verbiage doesn't match what grant funders are looking for, and you won't be awarded funding. So I think that's where it takes.
Yeah, we know from experience from writing, you know, tons of these grants that grant committees talk a specific language. And if you're talking outside of their language, it's foreign to them. They may not even get to your cause and the merit of your request, because they're going to have other grants that are professionally written that are going to be sitting at the top of the file. So having grant writers who are skilled at putting the grants together, I think is the only way, you know, to keep yourself in the running, because no grant committee has unlimited funds, and they have to decide where those funds are going to go. And so if you submit a poorly written grant, you're probably going to be discarded or put to the bottom of the pile just on the basis of how the grant was written to begin with. So I think that's important. So then when it comes to companies who may be looking for, you know, this, I think for the most part, people tend to think of this as venture capital, or, you know, where can they find investors, but there is some money out there if you can put the time into it and the energy to find grants that don't have, you know, it's still money, that it's not a loan, you won't have to pay it back, but they're harder to find. So what really is, what are some of the good for-profit businesses that you think have a realistic opportunity to access grant funding?
So that's a great question, actually. You know, for-profits are a little different. I think anyone that has a change agent involved with their company. And what I mean by a change agent, if you have something that's a big idea in the world today, for example, sustainable energy is a huge industry right now. And there are so many companies looking to support other companies, other small businesses that are developing sustainable energy practices. Not just other companies, but the government as well. There's a lot of government funding, and we hear a lot about how the government's cutting spending in certain areas, et cetera, et cetera. But there's certain departments of the government, the National Science Foundation, for example, that their whole job is to give funds to, not their whole job, but part of their job is to give funding to these businesses that are supporting energy conservation and sustainable energy. So that's a great industry to ask for funds in for-profit. Other industries are industries that have a philanthropic bent to them. So, for example, an industry that is working with youth or does youth internships could ask for funding from private sector, because what they're doing is helping and making a change in the world.
So it is quite possible then for a for-profit company to have a philanthropic arm, or you know, a nonprofit aspect to what they can do. They become the sponsor of for instance, of a nonprofit or charitable side of their business, and then funds can be obtained strictly for the charitable side that never gets commingled into the for-profit side of the company.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen some of these industries. I'm going to give you a couple examples. Tom's Shoes. Tom's Shoes, as you know, you may or may not know, Tom's Shoes, when they developed, for every person that bought a shoe, they sent a shoe out to someone in need, or taught someone in one of these third world countries to make shoes. And there were industry organizations throwing money at them, like, this is a beautiful idea, here, you don't have to pay us back, just go do this thing. And residually they helped the world, and then they became this huge for-profit company, but they're still doing this philanthropic thing through their company. Another is Warby Parker glasses. You buy glasses, Warby Parker uses those funds to give someone a pair of glasses. It's all over the place. I mean, there are STEM foundations, that's science, tech, engineering, and mathematics for girls in schools. Any company that ties their program, technology companies, software companies, engineering companies, that tie what they do into a STEM program with a local school is eligible for grant funding. These are the kinds of for-profits. It's just, there's so much out there that people don't know about. But this is also why you need a professional grant writer, because the language in those varies from grant to grant, from business to business. And it's not, I mean, let's be clear, it's not just about what the funder wants. It's about getting your voice to come through loud and clear within that grant funding. So when you or I is writing a grant, that's our whole purpose, is to sound like your company, but match their criteria. Does that make sense?
Yes. Ken Robinson, who is an educational kind of a guru and proponent, I love what he says, and he makes a statement about the fact that he believes now that creativity is just as important as literacy. And so we cannot any longer be afraid to be creative and to look at our businesses, tie them into our philanthropic, passions, see the world in a broader perspective, and not be so afraid to attach compassion to the component of enterprise. And so I think we help build a bridge when it comes to those things. And I think your company, because I'm so closely affiliated with it, I understand the mission of your company, and I find it easy to work along with you on many projects because I do understand that. But I think businesses who are looking for a way to promote their cause just needs a conversation sometimes with somebody like you and your company who can help, like you said, bring cohesion to their conversation, but it's also to their presentation, so that they may have wonderful ideas, and some of them may be working, and they may be working as they stand alone, but would be even more powerful if they were brought together. And so you get all of the pistons of the engine firing together, for maximum horsepower. And I think that what you do is just that. You help analyze, look at where a company's at, what they're wanting to do, how to bring it all together, and then maximize the strategy for implementing what they really want to do. Social media is it's a superhighway, but it's also a very congested superhighway now. And like everything, after it's been in place for a while, what started out to be gangbusters and really sent some people soaring, now seems like a big parking lot. So when you're looking at these social media channels, in your view, when you're working with a client and you're looking at their company and their collateral, and you're getting to know them and you're doing your research, do you just say, okay, we need to do this in all of these social media channels, or do you try to take and fine tune what social media channels would be best for that particular company?
That's so I definitely fine tune. It's not every channel works best for every type of company. If you are a visually driven company, for example, if you are in real estate, we have a couple of real estate clients. You have beautiful photos to show houses. That's really lends itself to something like Instagram, where people want to see pictures. They want to see, they're looking for things like that.
Right.
So I'm going to drive that customer to Instagram and visually driven social media. Facebook is not as visually driven. It can be, but Facebook's going more toward, as far as marketing promotions is going, it's going toward video. So I might push my real estate clients to do a video tour of their home, and that's what we place on Facebook. So it's very deliberate, it's very thoughtful as far as what social media it fits best with what type of client. So if you're word driven, Twitter is great for you, as long as you can consolidate those words. It just really depends on the type of client.
Yeah, even the content for social media requires some expertise. And I think when I had somebody, a good friend of mine, point out to me today, gave me some, not today, but recently, pointed out for something I was doing on Twitter without realizing it, and I was sounding on Twitter like I am on Facebook, and there are two different platforms, and really are they have a completely different kind of rules of the road. And so I was very grateful to fine tune that a little bit, and and I was appreciative of somebody pointing out something that simple to me. But when you're trying to stand out, the little things matter. And so, yeah, I think that's great. So whether you're an entrepreneur launching a new business, or you've got an established business that maybe is stalling or stagnating, what do you recommend for a company to jumpstart their marketing campaign?
So on this, I keep wanting to say that's a great question. They're all great questions, Rick. So it's, for me, it's about taking a risk. There are companies who are, let's talk about a traditional company. There are traditional companies that have become formulaic about how they do marketing, and they're afraid to jump outside of their box because they're used to doing something a certain way, and it's worked for them in the past. But what they're seeing is their profit declining and their customer base declining. You have to be willing to take a risk. And if you aren't willing to take a risk, you need to hire someone who's willing to take that risk for you. Now, clearly, we have to match your voice and your vision. But I think for any entrepreneur that's seeing, sort of a backslide in performance, or small businesses that are wanting to grow their marketing, I think you have to be willing to do something new that you haven't done before. And for me, and that's where I like to get to know you, and I like to find your comfortable risk-taking point. I forget, there's a quote, something about nothing great happens until you are willing to risk it all. I don't think you have to risk everything. I think you just have to be willing to maybe take a chance. And for me, that's what it comes down to entrepreneurs. When it feels like things are failing, you don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. You do something new. You do something different. You do something out of your comfort zone to get you to a new place, because that's where you want to be, is this new place with better performance.
Yeah, almost all of the experts agree on a few things, and one of them is that our success is found somewhere in our daily habits. And so we get so comfortable doing stuff the same way, even though it's not giving us desired results, that you need somebody actually to come in with a different set of eyes, with fresh passion, and say, hey, look, you're standing here in the forest and it's hard for you to see the trees. I'm back over here in the field and I'm looking in here and I'm seeing, this is where you got some holes in your cheese here. And let's we plug those up, and let's move that thing along. And so, yeah, I think that we are living in a world right now when we are so busy, under so much stress, and we've got so much on our plate to deal with, and we're all feeling disconnected when we should be feeling more connected than we've ever felt in our lives. And so I think consultants and companies like yourself, who are providing such a powerful service for other companies, this is just a really great part, I think, of where we are, in the business world. Websites, I think, too, sometimes have to be, and all of your marketing stuff have to be reevaluated, because if you're over-promising and under-delivering, that catches up to you pretty quickly. And so I think even when it comes to the marketing side of what you're projecting, is it realistic? Is that also, in harmony with the work that you're actually doing? And another business consultant friend of mine who just does an incredible job helping companies along realizes that a lot of tension and breakdown takes place because you've got the sales department on one end promising they'll deliver it at a certain time, and then when you go to production says, we can't possibly deliver that when you said it. And so communication breaks down, and then you get bad feelings, and now you got attitudes floating around, on the production floor, and the next thing you know, you're putting out fires and you're really not managing growth. And so I think, again, when someone like yourself comes in from the outside and looks at the big picture and says, hey, listen, let's bring everybody together. Let's get everybody talking the same language. Let's get our harmony working. Let's get our message clear. and let's put that out there. And so, you know, when companies are looking for communication and marketing help, I think it really is important when they're looking for somebody who understands all of those dynamics.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I can't say more. I agree.
How can we, when you're dealing with the client then, and they've got to make some big decisions, maybe change has to be made, and you know, like you referenced, there's a change agent. Okay, we've got a change agent inside that company. Maybe you have to actually change the change agent, but you know, when you're confronting getting a company unstuck, moving the ball down the court, when you're addressing all of those issues, how can you help them prioritize? Like give them a short synopsis here of how you help them prioritize to move, you know, off of where they're stuck.
Okay, so you know, the first part is finding out where your fear is. I think change is scary. And I think you have to ask yourself, why am I afraid? What am I afraid of? And where am I stuck? Without knowing that, it's impossible to move forward. So priority number one, determining what you're afraid of, what voice you're afraid of putting out there. And number two, talking to someone so that you can, a mediator, so to speak, so that you can find that middle ground. So priority number two would be talking to someone who can help you develop that or step away from that fear and finding your comfortable place. Part of doing that is step three, which is developing a plan. What is our plan? How do we move forward from this place? What language do you want to use? Here's a list of words that you want to stay close to or stay away from. What is your priority as far as, you know, do you see yourself as a funny company? Do you see yourself as a calm company? Do you see yourself as a passionate? You know, how do you envision your future self, and how do you want your client to envision you? So then you prioritize that by developing some key words, phrases, ideals really is what they are, some key ideals for your company. And once those are developed, it's really easy to kind of skirt that line of trying something new without being afraid you're going to fall over the cliff. And I would say those are the top four priorities. You know, figure out your fear, find someone to talk to, develop your area of comfort but still pushes your boundary a little bit, and define your ideals. So for me, those are the four big ones. After that, there's their plan is developed somewhere in there, is how do we move forward? And those are always, with some companies, they're baby steps. Sometimes it's, let's try one social media. Let's just go out there. You're not on it. Let's try it. Or let's build a website for you. And we work collaboratively on that. So the voice is yours, but now you're outside of your boundary because now you have a website.
Yeah. What's Jack Palance say in the movie? You find that one thing
Yes.
that you're good at. So, you know, and that brings up, you know, I think a good question for us to kind of wrap this up on, and that is, can a company do it all without losing something in the process?
Yes, you can. You have to be aware of what you're able to handle. You have to be aware of where your expertise lies. You might be, like me, a gen of all trades, where you've done a little bit of everything and you feel comfortable in these certain areas. If you ask me to do engineering, I'd be like, I don't know engineering. If you ask me to write about engineering, I'd say, send me some collateral and I can write it for you. You have to, you know, that's the key, is in order to do it all, you have to take it step by step. And if it's not working, be willing to pull back and revisit what is working. And that goes for me too. You know, I'm building my business. So if I see something not working, I have to be willing to restructure and reevaluate. And I do the same thing for another company. When I look at them, I see what they're doing and I say, I can do all of these things for you. But if something isn't working, then we pull back and we go back to the drawing board. And it's step by step.
Well, I'm a big fan. I think you're incredibly talented, and so it's a pleasure, to really introduce you to the viewing public here on TLBTV. I want them to know how to get a hold of you, and the best place is BoHoGypsyGirl.com. When this show comes out, of course, there's an article that will accompany the show, and then it will have all of your links there. But for today, I want people to know how to quickly access you, and that would be through BoHoGypsyGirl.com.
Yeah.
Jen, it was a pleasure. Thanks for being with us. I think you have so much to offer, so I'm really hoping that companies that are looking for your services will find a way to connect with you through our show here today. I'm also interested in our viewers' thoughts and comments, and so I invite you to write to me at rickonlife@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. But remember, whatever is going on in your life, just sprinkle a little love on it. We'll see you next time.